Hello, and welcome to the Journeys of Folco Hornblower, the One Ring 2nd Edition Strider Mode adventure, written and narrated by me, Ryan Hewlett. The warmth and light of the rising sun awakens Folco, the cool spring morning air slowly warming but still refreshing to his nose and lungs. Well, at least those ghosts, or whatever they were around that stone, are no longer haunting us, Billy. Did you get a pleasant rest, my good friend? Folco, brushing down Billy and hand-feeding him some dew-covered grasses. Billy neighed in approval, and as he almost always does. Folco prepared a small breakfast of fried ham, crispy bacon, and some fresh bread toasted over the small fire he had prepared. And as he sat and ate, he looked over the gently rolling hills of the South Shire. Surveying the land, he noticed also subtly, and what he would later attribute to the differences of each farthing, how the fields were kept, what had been divided, and what had been grown or what livestock were raised. To the south were wide fields of fruits and grapes and fields of growing pipeweed. To the west were smaller farms and pastures, where Folco could see rolling hills of grains and barley, fields with wildflowers suitable for nice-tasting honey, and seemingly open fields of scattered groves between the farmsteads that would be great places to hunt wild game. To the east, Folco noticed that although the hills rolled and some farms were present, it definitely seemed wilder and less attended. Off far to the southeast, and what Folco could only guess as per the map given to him by Bilbo, was the woody end, and beyond that, his destination of Bamfurlong in the Marish. Well, I believe we'll head over in that direction. Folco, pointing towards the southeastern horizon, Billy nodding in approval. Cleaning up after camp and packing away his belongings, Folco and Billy trekked across the open fields of the south and east farthings. The walk was without incident, and being a nice warm spring day, pleasant and relatively relaxing. As midday approached and nearing what could only be the stock road that goes east to west across the part of the Shire, Folco stopped and broke for lunch. No time for fires, Billy. Let's have a quick lunch and get on the road. And I want to get to the edge of the forest by nightfall. Hopefully just time enough to find a nice rabbit to cook tonight. Folco quickly made a sandwich made of cheese, thinly sliced sausage, and a couple of slices of tomato, and on the side a handful of cut carrots. Billy availed himself of the fine clover and other grasses that were growing in the field where they had stopped. Taking a look around, Folco did notice that darkened clouds were starting to roll in from the west. Nothing ominous, but concerning. Let's not tarry any longer. I have a sense that the weather may not be in our favor come evening. Off to the forest. Hopefully we'll get set up camp under a large tree for some good cover. So off they went, reaching the stock road and heading eastward along its path. The road seemed well traveled, either by foot or, as evident by the ruts in the soil, by cart. That being said, Folco could not see either hobbit or beast east or west, save for some grazing livestock off in the distant pastures on either side of the road. As late afternoon approached, the winds changed direction and started to pick up. As the darkened clouds Folco spotted before started to overtake the warm sun, and a chill filled the air. Folco pulled out his thin wool jacket from his pack and put it on. As evening approached, the distant roll of thunder was heard, and Folco quickly increased his pace. As he approached the edge of the woody end, amongst the thick expanse of beeches, white beams, and rowans, Folco set up camp under a large oak. Its thick, heavy branches provided some good cover for the impending rains to come. Well, we made it, Billy, and just in time, I might add. Another half hour and we'd be soaked to the bone. Folco, pulling out his flint and tinder, proceeded to light a fire as quickly as he could. No sooner had he done that, than the skies opened up with a thunderous roar, and the rain started to fall. With the falling rain and the air cold and damp, Folco pulled Billy in as close as he could to the fire for warmth. Cooking the last of his fresh meat and vegetables, Folco and Billy waited out the storm throughout the night. By morning, not much had improved since the evening, save for the rains changing to a foggy mist throughout the woods. The occasional sound of birds fluttering and squirrels squeaking in the branches of nearby trees broke the quiet hum of the forest. Folco could barely see a couple of 100 feet ahead of him, and it took him a number of moments to find his bearings and realize that he was a fair distance from the road. Nevertheless, after a quick breakfast, he and Billy proceeded eastward along the road through the forest, hoping to make it to Woodhall by nightfall. An ambitious plan on the best of days, Folco would soon learn it was folly to think he could make it, especially today. Although the road was frequently traveled, the heavy rains of the previous evening and morning and the continued mist and dampness made the road all but unpassable. Huge puddles of water, muddy potholes, and the occasional newly fallen tree made the journey arduous and significantly slowed his progress to Woodhall by evening. When Folco thought it couldn't get any worse, the rain started to fall again, making the road even worse than it already was. Folco and Billy tried their best to make good time, but by the time evening rolled around and themselves and their gear soaked to the bone with rain, managed only half the distance they had hoped, 6 or 7 miles Folco wagered. Before the last of the daylight left, Folco once again set up camp under a heavy oak and lit a fire as best he could given the circumstances. The fire smoldered in smoke and eventually a flame arose. "Well, Billy, let us hope this fire will last and the old Toby is still dry." And with that, Folco sitting against the trunk of the oak, Billy resting beside him, took out his pouch of old Toby given to him by Bilbo, packed it into his fine pipe, and proceeded to light it. Without fail, Folco was quickly taking in a number of draws and ensuring the pipe was hot and well smoldering. After a few moments, he proceeded to practice his smoke ring blowing. Folco wished he didn't take out his pipe that evening. Under the heavy rain and the darkened forest of the woody end, and whatever energies lay hidden in the wood, Folco didn't know, but there was something dark about it, and as he proceeded to puff out smoke rings, and whether it was the dryness of the pipe weed combined with the heavy dampness of the air, the fine pipe that was handed down to him by his grandfather Tobias Hornblower split, cracked, and burst like a firecracker, sending embers of old Toby all over the place. A moment of awe fell across Folco, and Billy was startled by the event. Then, despair, Folco felt, and sadness as his family heirloom now lay splintered in his hand on the forest floor. Folco looked at the remains of his pipe and quietly picked up the pieces he could find, and wrapping it up in his pocket handkerchief, he carefully placed it in his pack. He took a deep breath and tried to resolve and calm his mind from the sorrow of this happening. Letting out his breath slowly, Folco turned to Billy. "No worries, Billy. Plenty of fine pipes to be had. We're in the Shire after all, and if you can't find a good pipe here, well, you wouldn't be able to find one anywhere. Just a minor setback, that's all. Besides, the old Toby gave us a little light show in the end now, didn't it?" Billy neighed and nodded, and they both settled in for the evening, reassured that tomorrow would be better. At least that is what they had hoped. The evening and night passed without incident, and whatever storm rolled through the previous day had now passed. The sun shone through the canopy made by the trees just enough to warm both Folco and Billy, and almost dry their clothes. Emboldened by the warmth and the sounds of the forest animals echoing through the trees, Folco, after breakfast, proceeded again eastward along the stock road. The road still was a difficult mess to pass, as the trees of the woody end provided enough shade that even the high noon sun couldn't completely dry it. Progress was a little faster, but not enough to make it any further than Woodhall before time for supper. Folco, weary from the sleeping wet in the forest and without a pipe to keep his spirits up, decided to take rest in Woodhall and continue on in the morrow. As Folco came to the outskirts of the village, all manners of hobbits were present, some returning from the wood with spoils from their hunt, others pushing barrels of freshly dug up root vegetables, and others pulling carts full of cut wood. As Folco passed by, he noticed they were much more pleasant than he had expected, everyone giving a smile and a nod, a quick hello and a good evening, but carrying on with whatever they were doing, minding their own. Walking through the town, Folco happened on a sign of a shop, and a grin came across Falco's face. The sign read, "Rosefield's Pipe and Smoke." "Well, would you look at that, Billy? Fortune favors us this day," Folco enthusiastically said to Billy. Unfortunately, when Folco tried the door, it was firmly locked and no sign or sound of anyone inside. Folco asked a passing hobbit if the proprietor was open, and with a short and curt response, Folco learned it would be open by tomorrow. Feeling a little disappointed, Folco proceeded further down the main thoroughfare, coming on to what could only be the inn and tavern, a place called Wood's End. The clanging of tankards, the singing of song, and the resting of plates on tables could be heard inside. But what caught Falco's attention was the sweet smell of what could only be freshly baked pies or cake. "We'll rest up here tonight, my good friend. I'll see what's inside," and save you some of that which smells so good," Folco said to Billy as he tied him up off to the side where a patch of grass, left relatively untouched, had been growing. Walking through the front doors of the establishment, Folco was welcomed by a stout hobbit, most likely the proprietor. "Greetings, my young lad. Welcome to Wood's End, the finest inn this side of the Brandywine." And with that, a number of cheers from the tables and clanking of tankards rang through the room. "My name is Odo Grubb, and what did your mother call you? Are you looking for room, ale, or both?" A big smile came across Odo's face. His hands rest on each side of his waist. "Well, Folco Hornblower is my name, and I'm looking for both, actually, but especially whatever that delicious smell would happen to be. Hopefully it's something to eat and not just a decorative flower," Folco said, taking another deep smell. "I can definitely tell you're not from around here, or I'm sure you would have heard about my missis's famous, most delicious and decadent bilberry cakes. Where do you hail from, anyway?" Odo asked inquisitively, perplexed that Folco didn't know about the cakes. "Well," pausing for a moment to consider his answer, "I'm born and raised in the Bree-land, and I've come to explore the Shire I've heard so much about." A big smile came across Odo's face. "Well, I can honestly say we haven't had any visitors from Bree stay here, let alone a Bree-land Hobbit. Either way, welcome. Let's get you settled at a nice table and get some of that cake ready for you. Who knows, I just may get you to take some of the cake back with you to Bree. Could open a new market. I'm sure the big folk would love the cakes the missus bakes, and if they don't, well, that's their loss." Laughing, Odo scurries back into the kitchen, shouting orders to what could only be Mrs. Grubb. Folco heard Mrs. Grubb shouting back in return, with some not-so-kind words thrown in for good measure. The spread of food that was delivered was delicious. Fried fish and chips, paired with some ale, finish off with a decadent bilberry cake. And, as Folco later found out, is also served on occasion in many of the inns of Stock and Frogmont. Folco observed the comings and goings of Woodhall hobbits, and although none cared or asked about Folco, or where he had come from aside from Odo, he sensed that these were more welcoming folk, content with what they have and do, and no minding to others' businesses. No sooner did Folco finish his meal and ale than walked in a grizzled, wary-looking hobbit, who'd seen better days. By his garments he looked like a woodman, who spent more time felling trees than sitting near a warm hearth. Odo quickly went over to the gentleman. "Well, Berilac, haven't seen you around in a while. What brings you?" Mincing no words and in a deep, gruff voice, "Food and ale, and then I'll be off. That beast is back out there again, and it's about time someone does something about it." Berilac sat down on the stool. Another hobbit, Folco never found out his name, walked over to Berilac, questioning him about what he saw. All Folco could make out, and then hearing the murmurings from other patrons in the tavern about the Black Wolf of Woody End, Folco waved Odo over after seeing Berilac his meal and asked what was going on. Odo, leaning in towards Folco. "Well, you see, ever since we were all children here in Woodhall and in the surrounding Yale, stories have been told of the Black Wolf, who haunts and hunts prey in the Woody End since before I was born. Where this beast comes from, who knows, but some say it's a descendant of one of those beasts who came down from the north during the fell winter. We use the stories to scare the children to be nice and respectful, lest they find themselves alone near the wood and the Black Wolf of Woody End take them to its den for a light supper. Now, all of us older folk know that this is just a tale, and it works to keep the young ones in line. However, old Berilac over there, who probably spends more time in the woods than anywhere else here ever does, well, he's been tracking a beast through the wood for a while now, scaring the livestock, taking away the laying hens, and even the occasional hound has went missing. Children are afraid to play anywhere near the trees now. Maybe the stories are true. Maybe not. Either way, all we can do is keep working away." With that, Folco took the piece of bilberry cake he left for Billy and went out to feed it to him. The night was crisp and cool, the sky clear, and the stars shone brightly. People were still milling about, and no one seemed to care about the story of the Black Wolf. But regardless, Folco, securing Billy, gave him a good brushing and then retired to his room. Morning came, and after a hearty breakfast, Folco thanked Odo for the rum and meal and found Billy where he had left him. The village again was alive with hobbits milling about, and Folco proceeded to head over to Rosefield to inquire about another pipe. Opening the door, and by the tinging of the doorbell, Folco was greeted by who he could only think of as Rosefield. "Welcome to Rosefields. Do you wish to trade or buy?" Folco, letting out a slight cough and a sigh. "To buy. Unfortunately, my pipe exploded. I'm in need of a replacement." "Exploded? My word. Don't believe that's ever happened to me. Why, let me take a look at it. See if I can fix it." Rosefield held out his hand, and Folco, digging into his pack, gave him the broken pieces of pipe he had wrapped in the handkerchief. Laying it on the counter, Rosefield carefully unwrapped the handkerchief, and looking at the shards of the pipe, he nodded. "I mean, I'm good, but I'm not that good. Whatever you put in there really did a number on it. Fine-looking pipe, too. Old. Must have been in your family for some time. Pity. Could have offered you a nice trade for it, if you wanted." "Well, considering the state you're in, what were you looking for? I have all types of pipe to suit every need. Small ones, long ones, skinny and fat ones. Some old, some young, some from here and very far away, even some dwarf ones from as far away as Eriador." Rosefield pointed to the many pipes on display. "Well, I'm a hornblower, and I've just found out that an ancestor of mine was none other than Tobold Hornblower of Old Toby fame. Just so happens that Old Toby is the leaf that turned my pipe into a firecracker. So, do you happen to have anything that would suit me in this stash of Old Toby?" Folco, puffing out his chest and dropping the hornblower name, said excitedly. Rosefield, grinning like an old fox, opened a drawer from underneath his counter, pulled out and placed a dusty wooden box on display. Brushing the dust off, he opened the lid and presented to Folco a finely crafted briarwood smoking pipe. Longer than his other, and with a bigger bowl but smaller chamber, and with a nicely inlaid leaf wrapping around the heel, Folco knew that this was well-made smoking pipe. "I was waiting for the right hobbit to come in here and look for one of my pipes. As soon as you said your last name, I knew this was the one. You see here, this leaf, it's actually an exact match to what leaf the Old Toby is from. So it's fitting that an ancestor of the cultivator himself should have it. Here, try it. No need to use your own. I'll pack some of my Old Toby in for you." And before Folco could say yes, a fully packed and ready to be lit pipe was in his hands. Folco proceeded to light the pipe, and carefully this time, drawing in a few draws, proceeded to blow a number of smoke rings as best he could. Like the results of his competition with Bilbo, Folco did something similarly spectacular, blowing one ring through the other, and then a third expanding and contracting over the first two. Rosefield clapped in amazement and let out a hearty laugh. "My eyes have seen it all. You do carry that name well, my boy. Well, it seems you were destined to come here, and I was destined to give you this pipe. Normally I charge fair prices anyway, however I'll give you a great deal regardless. Half off, as you definitely gave me a great show this day." After exchanging further pleasantries and Rosefield showing off some of his collected pipes from near and far, Folco bid him farewell and thanked him for the finely crafted briarwood Rosefield pipe with the Old Toby leaf inlay. Emboldened with the new find, Folco untied Billy, and after asking a number of the locals about how best to cross the Brook, he was pointed in a number of directions just east of Woodhall, past the edges of the forest, where a number of small fords can be easily traversed by both hobbit and beast. By noon of that day, Folco reached the waters of the Brook, and he could see the water levels, despite the recent rains in the area being just low enough to see a number of stones break through the surface. Thinking it best to cross and then have lunch, Folco decided to test the waters and make his way across. Without fail, reaching the other side, Folco set Billy to graze on the nearby grasses, as he sat and ate lunch, taking in the sounds of the meandering brook. By the mid-afternoon of the 5th day since leaving Baggin and making his way across the Marish, he finally reached a long brick farmhouse with a thatched roof surrounded by great fields of vegetables. As Folco approached, the high walls and gates surrounding the farmhouse, etched into a wooden sign, was marked Bamfurlong. Folco had reached his destination. But before Falco could even touch the gate to open it, a terse voice from behind Falco called him. Where do you think you're going uninvited? Falco turned to see a young but broad hobbit, not much younger or older than himself, leaning upon a shovel, eyeing Falco closely. Well, state your business, and then be off. As you can see, I'm quite busy. Falco, taking a swallow and a breath in, steadying Billy as he replied. Well, I'm here to deliver a letter from a Master Baggins to this here place, Bamfurlong. As I can read on the sign over there, are you the master of this house? No sooner had Falco removed the letter from his inner vest pocket than the would-be hobbit farmer snatched it out of his hands and ripped it open. After reading a few lines, he let out a deep laugh and seemed to relax into an amiable hobbit. I was told you were coming, but I wasn't sure I would have actually seen you in the flesh. It's quite a long journey from Bag End, as you know. Please follow me. You must be hungry, thirsty, and quite weary by the looks of you. Food will be ready in no time. You can set your pony on the patch of grass behind the house. Yeah, he'll be okay, I'm sure. And with that, Falco and Billy were behind the gates of Bamfurlong, and Falco ushered into the warm, comfortable home of one Farmer Maggot. All right, thank you for watching the third session for my Strider Mode solo adventures of the One Ring 2nd edition. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe and follow for more content. Some of my planning here is to actually maybe do some reviews of upcoming modules, books, and whatnot, and then other resources as well. And then maybe some commentary as I learn through of in more detail about some of the experiences that I've had and that may or may not be helpful to people that play the game either solo or as lore masters or as player characters. So if you take a look here, we'll continue. So we finished the journey. Falco had reached Bamfurlong without any grievous injuries, unlike his previous foray from Bree to the Shire. And a number of things that had happened, and I realized at the beginning, I realized that a little error when I was looking at how to do travel fatigue and when to do that and whatnot. And so rules is written as far as I understand, and you can comment in the comment section if I'm in error. Again, using this solo adventuring as a way to learn the system because I'm fairly new to it. And what I've realized is that, calculating the fatigue points to total up towards the end, as well as then doing the travel rolls or travel roll to be able to reduce that fatigue points depending on how many you tallied throughout the adventure. So for Falco, during his adventure, he had 2 events that caused him to get a total fatigue of 7. And as you can see here, he has 6. Reason being is that he has Billy the pony, who provides him with 1 vigor. And then on his travel roll, unfortunately, he had been unsuccessful in rolling for travel. Now, what I did realize after reading a bunch of the forum boards and on Discord was that, or there was some debate back and forth about if it's possible to get the favored or inspired rolls that you get by spending a point of hope when doing your travel roll, because due to the Strider mode or the Strider distinctive feature. And so there's some debates between a number of more experienced players and lore masters that some would allow it, some may not. But I just went completely rules as written from the core book. And so his target number for doing travel rolls was a 14. And he rolled 4 on the feat die and 7 in total on success dice because he has 2 diamonds on his travel. So his fatigue at the end of the journey from Baggin to Bamfurlong was 6 altogether. He did use a number of points of hope. He had used 3 throughout the course of the adventure. And what I had done was, due to the fellowship points being recouped at the end of every session, I used 3 points of the fellowship pool to up his replenish his hope to his full capacity of 16. And because fellowship resets at the end of a session or at the beginning of the next one, I just reset it back to the 6 points. Now you're asking, well, how does he get 6 points of fellowship? Well, he gets 3 for being, because this is the Strider mode, he gets 2 for having patron, or having Bilbo Baggins as his patron, and then he gets an extra fellowship point for having the blessing of Bree blood, for a total of 6 fellowship points. So again, after reading some of the forums and the usage and getting some clarity on the usage of hope and then how you replenish it, and then the use of fellowship, I'm definitely going to be looking at, burning through some fellowship, for some hope points, to increase my chances of success and increase Tangwars, because I have this bank of 6 fellowship points. Incidentally, I noticed too with Bilbo Baggins as patron, if during the fellowship phase I do a meet your patron thing quest, Bilbo provides an extra fellowship point until the next fellowship phase to add to that pool. So I've got a feeling that I'm going to be able to keep my hope levels up and use it and replenish it during each session. So that's going to help to really, hopefully, keep Folco alive. What else? So that's fatigue. We've got the fellowship. We've got the hope all done. If you noticed during the adventure and his breaking of the pipe of his family heirloom fine pipe that he had, that gave him an insight bonus. When I rolled as he was practicing for his smoke rings, and I rolled the failure for the skill, for the riddle roll, but also rolled an Eye of Sauron for that. So I wanted to kind of bring in that into that narrative aspect about how, how that would impact, how does it raise the eye awareness? How does it raise, shadow points? How does it, kind of be detrimental to his, will and his heart? So, I made the decision as a lore master, to, increase the eye awareness by 1 by virtue of rolling the Eye of Sauron on the skill roll outside of a safe haven. He happens to be in a borderland, so it was only increased by 1, and that's how I understand how the eye awareness works. And then increased by 1 shadow point, just because of the despair and the darkness and whatnot. However, in rolling a successful shadow test, his shadow test that he rolled to kind of defeat and kind of bring his mind to resolve, target number was a 14. I rolled a 10 on my feat die. I used a point of hope to increase my chances by adding an extra success dice, and I was able to roll a 7 in total for a roll of 17 over 14 for the target number. So I was able to drop that shadow down to 0. And I'm going to assume, one of the things about hobbits versus other races, especially the elves, is that they are very strong of heart, and because of their hope pools, I think they can tend to kind of weather the shadow and the despair that accompanies it better than others. let's see if there's any other commentary that I want to chat about. Yeah, let's look at for the adventure and experience, so adventure points and skill points. So using the milestone tables from the Strider rules, it looks like Folco will gain, so he's completed the patron mission by delivering the missive to Farmer Maggot in Bamfurlong, where he gets a 1 adventure point and 1 skill point, which I've already added into the previous accumulation of skill and adventure points from the previous session. And he's completed a meaningful journey, and so I've added 2 skill points for that, for a total of 3 adventure points and 5 skill points. Again, you can spend those during fellowship phase, but he's not at that point yet. Again, any comments and whatnot regarding the experience and adventure and skill points, please let me know. If you felt that I should have either added or maybe not even added as much, that'd be great. I'm looking for all kinds of feedback. Any questions, and whatnot, again, please leave a comment. Please subscribe. I really am enjoying doing this, not only for myself, but just from some of the comments already that you have given. I know that you guys have been enjoying it so far, even though it's been 2 or 3 sessions in. I do find this is very rewarding for myself. It's very therapeutic. I wanted to kind of chronicle a solo adventure, and I just didn't want to do it on paper. I wanted to be able to put pictures to it, be able to put some music to it, and have it on Roll20, have it online so that it's easily shared, and I can just share it with the rest of you. So thanks again, and hope you'll continue to listen, follow, and continue to enjoy it. Thank you, and happy adventures. Bye for now.